Matt Vasgersian back with the minor league pregame show, counting you down to Double-A Texas League Baseball with tonight's version of the Bowman Prospect Spotlight. Chester Adams is in that spotlight, and he's making his Double-A debut in this one after being the organization's first pick in the most recent first-year player draft.
Yeah, there's a lot of excitement around him, Matt. He was targeted pretty heavily heading into the draft, and they made it clear they were very happy they got the opportunity to draft him. And you know, he's still got a long road ahead of him before he makes his big league debut, but I'm pretty confident he'll be an impact player when he gets there. Now, it's time to work hard and prove why he was worthy of being a first-round pick.
All right, lineups and first pitch are coming.
Hey, what's up, guys? Tony here, and you are watching another episode of my Road to the Show series with Chester Adams, my starting pitcher, who was, if you watched the last episode, he was drafted by the San Diego Padres. So, for me, you know, being the player, it's always like nice and exciting to be the guy, like the hometown kid drafted by the hometown team. So I am starting my road to the show. This is my very first Double-A start, and I'm actually not going to talk much about the game because you're going to watch it, and the commentary might not be that long because I'm a little rusty. I'm a little out of it. I haven't sat down to do a commentary like this in a long time, so just going to kind of wing it here and see how long it goes. I think the video is going to be 20-some odd minutes or thereabouts because they're long. When you play as a starting pitcher, they're long. And the one thing I've always noticed, and the whole video is going to be basically about the things that I like about MLB 15 and just sort of the improvements that I've seen from MLB 14. But the one thing that I've always noticed is that for whatever reason, the manager just doesn't like to pull you. And that what's really strange. Okay, so I think it was like MLB 13. The manager would just pull you like really quickly. You're just like, wait, what? What the hell? And then in MLB 14, they seem to not pull you at times where I thought you should, because I found myself in MLB 14 pitching deeper and deeper into games, which I'm totally fine. Like, I don't mind pitching deeper in the game because you get more performance points. You get more points out of it to spend. There's a little Gran Turismo coming out of me, but you get more points to spend on your character later on. So, you know, if you can do well and you pitch a complete game, then you get a bonus for, you know, pitching 9 innings, complete game, especially if it's a shutout. And so, like, for me as a player, I'm torn by that whole like shutout situation, because there comes a time where your bullpen should take over. You know, you don't want your pitchers throwing like 300 innings a year. That's getting into the danger territory. But I mean, granted, this is a game, so it really doesn't matter. But so basically, some of the things that I've noticed about this game so far, like I mentioned in my last video, this is the third character that I've created, the starting pitcher that I've created. So the first one basically was Chester Adams again, and after the new rosters came out, I wanted to actually redo what I had done and basically get the updated Padres roster. And to be honest, I didn't even know that I was going to get drafted by the Padres again, but it was like a hope because the first character actually was drafted by the Padres as well. I don't know if that's like a coincidence or maybe I just happened to play well enough where the Padres are pre-programmed in the game to draft starting pitchers early if you're like an A or B potential. I'm not sure, but that's the way it shook out. And so I wanted to make sure to get the updated rosters. And so when they're updated, I decided to redo the character. I actually did a second character, so I created one with my name. And in real life, I have sort of a hybrid, like Jake Peavy / Mark Pryor. So I have like in my real life, the way that I like to pitch, my windup looks sort of like a hybrid of Mark Pryor and Jake Peavy, because I kind of have the Jake Peavy stance, but I throw really over the top like Mark Pryor did. And so I chose Mark Pryor's his windup for my character, and I don't know, I just didn't like it. It like threw me off. So I was like, screw that character, deleting it. And then that's when I got hit by the YouTube MLB bug again. I was like, you know what? This is like the perfect opportunity. I have like the updated rosters, and I want to start over. And the first character that I created got to the show like by June, which I thought was really fast. Like a little too fast, especially for a starting pitcher. And it wasn't like I didn't buy performance points, or I didn't like have a shit ton. I didn't have any pre-order points that I could use. I just went to the store, bought the game when it was released, and then I came home and I played it. And by like June, I had gotten called up. And this is the way it was last season too. This is what I remember, which I never really got around to showing, which I wanted to. But I pitched. I think I had like 9 starts in AA, and then I got called up, and I pitched there for the remainder of the season. And then I think I got called up in roster expansion towards the end of the year. But then the next year, I pitched 7 games, AA, got called up straight to the big. So it was really strange where I only pitched like 6 or 7 games, or 9 at most, and then I got called up to the next level. And so I almost feel as if they're making the show a game where they're trying to make it easier for you to get to the show. I don't know if that's like an active choice. I'm not entirely sure, but from my experience in going from say previous, so like MLB 12 and older, starting pitchers usually take like 1 full season, maybe half a season to go from AA to AAA. And then you would go basically the next year you might get called up to the big. So you'd play through at least 1 whole season before you got to, at least in my experience, it was like a whole season or maybe half a season AA before you get called up. So you have to play like a whole year and a half before you got called up to the show. And I kind of like that grind. There's something about the minor league grind that is I don't know, rewarding in its own way. I can't quite put my finger at it, but I kind of like the minor league experience. I mean, there is like, as a position player, it can be a little tedious because you're playing so many games. You're just like, finally, you're just like, oh, I just want to get to the show. Whereas a starting pitcher, you're pitching every 5 days. Granted, if you don't get hurt, if you do get hurt, then you're gonna miss, a handful of games, whatever. But as a starting pitcher, 5, 6 to 9 starts, you're looking at a couple of months right there alone. And I don't know if it's the same sort of timetable, the same actually month time frame. I've never bothered to look. But like I said, as a fielder, you're playing every day and it gets kind of tedious. You're just like, oh, can I just get called up? I'm hitting like 450. I've hit a shit ton of dingers, and I've driven in a bunch of runs. I'm statistically way better than the guy in front of me, but my adjusted overall isn't higher than his. So you're just kind of like, you're kind of stuck in that gray area, and you have to wait till you got enough points and your overall and your adjusted overall are better than the guy ahead of you. I mean, I think it works the same way. I know that they're putting a bigger emphasis on actual player performance and not the points themselves and the overall and the adjusted overall. That's what I've heard. I can't really confirm that because, to be honest, this was my thing, is that although I was happy with MLB 14, there were things about it that I didn't like. One of my biggest gripe, I had several big gripes, and I wanted to actually make a video about it, and I never did. But my big gripe was the strike zones. I felt the strike zones were terrible. And I felt that the base runner speed, the speed of the base runner was way too fast by comparison to the reaction time and the arm strength of the fielders themselves. And so I actually had to go into the sliders and dial that up for the computer, because I got sick and tired of a shortstop making a great dive in the hole, picking the ball, and firing to first and being like a whole body too late. Whereas like you watch a major league game and it's bang bang at first. Like the fielders, they just were like disproportionately slower than the base runners, so I had to nerf the base runners to kind of get it to be a little bit more even. And that goes with like pitcher control, stuff like that. It's just, I got sick and tired of like having a pitcher with like an 80 control who couldn't hit the strike zone. And so I always kind of adjusted the sliders to make them a little closer to reality. Especially when you play like a franchise, there's nothing more frustrating than having like a really good pitcher who just can't seem to hit the fucking zone because the randomness of the algorithm says that that you're going to miss this pitch, even though you might have like a good release point. You're just like, he's like, isn't player ability to hit the spot like part of it? But sometimes it's not. So those were my gripes with MLB 14. Those are the major gripes. And I thought the animations were a little dated. They looked really dated. And this is this year as well. So here's the things that I kind of find myself griping about with MLB 15. The game itself doesn't look very polished. Like if you like wearing 3/4 length sleeves, if you wear just the 3/4 length sleeve, not the compression sleeve, your player's skin literally goes through the sleeve. It looks very sloppy. So if you want that clean look, you have to wear the compression sleeve, which doesn't really bother me. I do it now, but because I like the 3/4 length look. But it's like sloppy. It's one of those things that someone should have looked at and be like, we got to fix that. Like that can't go like that. But it did. I've seen characters in the stands, like their feet going through the wall. It's pretty noticeable. I think you'll notice it in a couple other videos. Here, or no, not here, but at the home stadium for San Antonio for the missions, this spectator's foot keeps coming through the brick. I'm like, oh God, who's in charge of making sure that doesn't happen? That's really annoying. The other thing that I've noticed that really drives me nuts about this game is that it's happened several times where the ball will literally phase through the catcher, like it'll go through his chest to the backstop. And I'm like, what the hell? And the last thing from a fielder standpoint, I've seen some really questionable decisions by the AI, and you'll see it in this game as well, if it hasn't come up already, where there's a pop-up, and he goes and he dives for it, instead of just fielding it on the hop and throwing the runner out. He dives for it, misses it, and I had a no-hitter up to that point, and I lost a no-hitter because of this stupid decision. And then in the outfield, I've had players really take their time getting a ball off the wall, and like it resulted, I think, in a triple. I'm just like, what are you waiting for? Holy shit. So those are the things I've noticed so far. Other than that, like the positive side, like the player animation looks really good, really fluid, and that's one thing that I noticed before in the previous show versions of the show, is that the players didn't move. They didn't have like a fluid sort of movement to them. It was very rigid, and it just didn't look good. And I was beside myself, because why is it that the show could do so many things so well, but then you look at stuff like player movement and animations, they were really rigid and just not pretty. But with like the 2K series, when it was around back on the Xbox, like they did player movement and animation really well, and it looked really good. And I just was like, why? I mean, they're putting out like a really crappy game otherwise, but they do this one part really well that I wish the show would do, is like player animations and player movements are very fluid and they look good. So finally now it's nice to see some of these animations become a little bit more fluid, a little bit more, I guess realistic is a way. Jake Peavy's windup is one of them. Like I just recently watched one of my MLB 14 videos. I had them archived on my hard drive, and I was just like, oh, that's so ugly. Like comparison to MLB 15, I think they did a really good job like enhancing the player animations. The other thing they actually took a look at, it's noticeable. For me, it seems like a noticeable difference, because in the previous versions, when they introduced the random umpires and how each umpire has their different strike zone, well, basically, even though if you want the umpires to call it the letter of the strike zone, you turn that off, right? So you turn the option off, and they call it to the letter. But that actually doesn't happen. It was still screwed up in MLB 14. It was like the most painful experience to be a pitcher and just be like hitting strikes. I had so many screenshots I posted. I got tired of it. I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter. They're not listening. But there was a lot of times where there'd be two pitches in virtually the same spot, and one would be a ball, one would be a strike, and it's just like, what the fuck? And so I got tired of doing that. And I can say there are some times so far that I've noticed I've been squeezed, but for the most part, the strike zone and the calling of the game has vastly improved. I'm actually pretty happy with the way the umpires are calling the game now. So what I'll say to that is that's definitely a positive. I was like I said, I'm just pretty happy with that. So those are pretty much my gripes from the old series or the old versions of the game, and my gripes for the new versions of the game, this current MLB 15, and also the things that I really enjoy about the game. It's fun, and like I was saying, it just feels like you get to the show a little too quickly. We'll see what happens with this character if it follows the same sort of pattern. I've only played, I think, maybe 2 more games after this first game, and I'll tell you, this is like a really good game. I was like, oh my god, like, someone's gonna be like, this guy is cheating, because I couldn't actually believe how well my player is playing in this first game, especially for having such low stats. It's just kind of like, it evens itself out later on as the game goes, like hitting wise. That's kind of what I'm referring to. And pitching wise too, character is really on his game, because if, like, you noticed in the last episode, he really was not hitting his spots at all. Excuse my cat for being really mouthy right now. But anyways, it's nice. It's really nice to get back into it and be playing the show again. What else? I had something else I want to talk about, but I totally, my cat disrupted my flow. She decided to wake up and make noise, and it just threw me off. Oh, actually, the one thing I actually wanted to ask you guys is, do you guys want to hear the commentary in the background? Because for me, if I take it out, it's not going to be really any that big of a loss for me, because it makes editing the video a little easier, because I don't have to wait for Matt Vasgersian to be like, and that's the third out of the inning, and then cut it there. I hate to cut them off when they're talking, because it just kind of ruins the flow. So if you guys are okay, I'm thinking about just cutting them out altogether and just having the game, because I'm going to be talking over it. That's just the way that I prefer to do business for these series. But overall, like, I'm really enjoying the show. I think basically my fear is that because of MLB 14, this is what I anticipated, is that MLB 14 being the first title on the PS4, I figured would be an improvement over a PS3 version, for sure. I mean, like, that's no doubt. And I think they put a little too much emphasis into hair last season. So it's nice that they looked into other aspects of the game besides their hair and facial hair and their basically their mullets. Like, I don't know why. Okay, here's a gripe that I have about baseball in general, and I'll get back on to what I was saying, but what the hell is with mullets right now? Like, beards and mullets. Like, I kind of, there's a part of me that gets, like, the whole playoff beard thing, but this whole, like, epic beard phenomenon, I just don't get it. And to each their own, I guess. But the mullet thing on the Padres staff especially, it's so fucking ridiculous. You got Cashner, you've got Kennedy, Thayer, who else has got a mullet? They have these, like, weird beards and weird mullets, and I think it's sort of like a team building thing, but, like, Kennedy's is out of control, and it's just not working. And Cashner's, I saw his was pretty freaking out of control as well. And I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get the mullets thing. I don't really get the beard thing. I mean, I do like a playoff beard. I get that. It's like camaraderie. We're at the playoffs. Grow that while you're in the playoffs. The mullets, I don't understand it. Like, let that die in the 80s, like, where it belongs. But anyways, going back to what I was saying, is, like, I'm really happy with this iteration of the show. It's very clean. It's very polished, from minus a few things. There's nitpicking in there that when I started playing, I was like, gosh, it doesn't look like a polished, finished product. But it is an improvement. It's like a vast improvement over last year's title. And that's kind of, I guess, what we can expect out of sports games, right? Like, each year it's supposed to get better. Now, if you're like, in the case of Madden, it's like each year it gets worse and worse and worse. But this is definitely not Madden. So, like I said, I'm really enjoying the show. I'm curious to know from you guys, how are you guys enjoying the show? Are you liking these sort of graphic improvements? What are your gripes? That's kind of what we should talk about in the chat and the comment section below. So what are your gripes? Like, what do you like about the game? What are the improvements that you're really enjoying? And what are some of the things that you've noticed that are, I don't know, like, even flaws? Like, what things are you really not liking about the game? Anyways, I'm looking forward to reading the comments in the comment section and engaging in some discussion. I guess to tie in like a real world, what's your team and how are you guys doing? Because right now as I'm recording this, you know, we just beat the Dodgers today, which was nice, but we still lost 2 out of 3 of this series. And tomorrow we've got the Astros coming to town, and I'm going to that game. I'm going to the Monday night game against the Astros, so it'll be nice to catch another Padres game. I was actually there on Saturday night too. Holy crap, that was a slugfest. I've never seen that many home runs hit at Petco. The wind was just blowing. It was rainy, and it was cold for San Diego, but holy crap. Like watching Upton, I almost called him Uptown Funk. That's kind of his nickname now, I guess. But Upton hitting those 2 bombs. Kennedy was just not on his game. It was a bad day for him, but it was nice to see us drive in. We drove in 8 runs. We had eight runs. It was 11-8. We lost, but still, like, it's nice to see this revamped Padres offense. So maybe in another video I'll talk about the Padres a little bit more. I don't want to spoil that. Anyways, yeah, so anyways, in the comment section, sort of reiterate, let me know what you're loving about the game, let me know what you hate about the game, and let me know like how your team's doing, your real life team. And if you want to talk about your team in MLB 15, then that's cool too. But I'm just kind of curious, you know, like what, you know, who are you a fan of, and how are you guys doing? So as always, guys, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I shall talk to you guys later.